I wanted to give my bit on OS X running on non-Apple hardware, and I thought I'd add a little bit more to the story. There was a time that Apple clones did exist. The Apple II was cloned, sometimes legally and sometimes illegally. And as a matter of fact, as a last attempt before Steve Jobs took over, Apple had an authorized cloning program, and it was a way to try to expand market share. When Steve Jobs came back, he basically raised the price for third-party vendors to buy the license from Apple to create these clones, basically. And the price was so ridiculous that nobody could come to an agreement, and thus ended the whole cloning program and any legal clones thereafter. And I believe the operating system at the time was OS 7. So there was once a time that there were legal Apple clones. What was it? I think Bell and Howell had one, if I can remember. And then there were some emulators, and I think the emulators had to do with the Apple II. I think it was an Amiga or something like that. Could be made into a Mac. But there was quite a few vendors that were legally licensed to make Apple clones. Now, we're obviously in today, and Jobs made his strategic move back then and placed the clones, Apple clones, out of business. I will say that off of what I've read, like VPs saying that they don't ever see it happening in the foreseeable future. We all know Jobs to be a perfectionist, or those that know Jobs or the story of Jobs, to be a perfectionist and very artistic. And I don't blame him for not wanting to license his product on, I think what is he called, Dell's just plain beige boxes or something like that at one time. So I don't blame him in that regard. But I've always been an advocate for increasing the range of Apple hardware, because it's very obvious when you try to hack into at least a lot of the older models, and I haven't really fiddled with the Intel models, but in my hardware videos, the hardware is getting more and more similar. And I think that there was arguments about PC hardware. I saw a video, well, PC hardware and Apple hardware are different. Not necessarily. Sometimes I would like to see Apple have higher front-side bus speeds on the existing models. Now, I know that the Penryn chips are coming out, and it's going to be 1600 FSB. That's awesome. But as like what I said in my hardware videos, if you're going to be limited in hardware, you would hope that the vendor provides the best hardware scenario possible. And sometimes that's not achievable to get the costs right, because I mean there has to be a balance of what the consumer will pay for the hardware, so on and so forth, and sometimes the cost of just putting in a higher FSP may not be practical. So that I completely understand. But there can be, at least in my opinion, a larger range of hardware that OS X can be licensed to run on. And I wouldn't go so far as not to say that I can see a possibility of third-party or a clone coming up again, but it would likely be something that would be aesthetically controlled by Apple, and it would have to be something where Apple sees a profit and benefit in having. If those two conditions are met, then it would likely happen. But one, I don't see the growth of Apple declining, and if anything, Macs are increasing in sales. So with that existing variable, I definitely don't see OS X being licensed out in anywhere in the near future. But like I said, there is the possibility, we never know how things are going to change in the future, that Macs start to decline in sales. And Apple needs to find a way to get more competitive. I mean, it's could be completely the opposite. So I'm just giving an unlikely scenario. So, I mean, that's my take on it. I think anyone can do a search and see OS X licensing out, and you'll probably get the Apple Insider article where it has a VP saying it's not going to happen. So there you have it. But there once was a time when there were Apple clones, and in the unlikely event that Mac sales decline, there could be another possibility then. But in my opinion, I don't see the Apple or Mac sales declining. Thanks for watching.